Join me for a second while I draw Icarus and share some lore before Artfight. I figure it might be easier to get more in depth with these characters by fitting as much as I possibly can into a 30-second video, instead of having a paragraph to read. This will be a bit of a mini-series as Artfight begins. These I'll try to make daily uploads, but that is purely just because I didn't finish these references soon enough to spread these videos out properly. So let's begin! For the past few years now, Icarus has been my persona and the namesake of all my channels ever. To be honest, I struggled for the longest time to make a persona that really represent myself, so for a while, I gave up on the thought. Jump to now, and I have a total of 3 personas I use when no one's even looking, so I guess they're just stuck forever. Throughout Artfight, if you're interested, I could introduce these guys properly, but again, something for another day. Icarus in particular has taken on a very manic personality. I feel like it's very representative of how the need to create kind of takes over and becomes the only thing I can think about. Which leads to the name Icarus, actually, as something that burns so fast very easily burns out. When I call him an all-consuming virus in his description, I'm being very literal. There's only one comic posted showing off what he normally looks like right here. But Icarus's whole purpose as a being is to just find ways to make more of himself in an endless goal of making more energy. That all changes when his virus meets the equivalent of an immune system that it can't attack. Icarus tried infecting a shapeshifter, and now this thing is trapped in a body that can forever adapt to itself, making Icarus, Icarus. This guy has no bones, no internal workings, no dick, no balls.
Probably no butthole since this guy feeds on radiation.
He's my favorite weirdo, and I would have nothing else represent me better than him. Now we get to talk about the light in my dark, the star in my sky, my lovely Silver. She has been my D&D character for the past almost 2 years actually, and she has consumed my every waking thought. My main story started collecting dust as this fixation has become a personality trait. I talked a little about the game itself on my latest video, but let's put some spotlight on her for a second. I actually got her as a character on a gamble of picking a number 1 through 3, and that attached her at my hip for the next 2 years. It's crazy, right? Because of that, her personality was something I couldn't really plan for. No backstory to work off of, just the vibe, and watching who she was haunt her self-image as she wonders if she can ever truly be herself again. And she's great at destroying doors, too. First, it was a coincidence, but now it feels like her whole purpose as a monk was just to get away with breaking them constantly. Hey, while I was editing this, I just realized that my microphone was not plugged in for the next 2 minutes. So, you get to hear the lovely sounds of my AC. I'm gonna have to apologize, but it'll be over soon, I promise. Emmy is actually my oldest character ever. She survived Warrior Cats, she survived middle school, she survived when I drifted into Dragons, she survived being shelved for 2 years before getting picked up and her story getting rebooted. Girl has seen pretty much every stage of my life, and has seen everything. And most impressive, her world lore has remained preserved for her entire existence. Some names have changed, sure, here and there, but that's just because I can't take myself seriously calling one of the main villains Cupcake, unironically. I can't do that anymore. A little fun fact about her though, I made her so very queer before I even knew what being a lesbian meant. Way back when I was in 5th grade, when Emmy was Emerald and she was only but a cat. There was also a co-star that has been there since day 1, and her name was Ember, and the two of them were so gay, the biggest lesbians on the planet, and I was like 10. I had no idea I was drawing gay cats, and they had a kid together. On top of it, Emerald had 2 dads, one of which was trans. I'm the prime example that queerness isn't something that's taught, because how the hell did I have so much gay shit in elementary school? And now Emmy is here, the grand old time of 2026, 9 years later. And her story is still here, and she's still gay, and she still has a girlfriend. And somehow she's, after all this time, the same adrenaline junkie war medic. I'm surprised that has stayed the same the entire time she's existed. At this point, that's just what the story's become.
And her world of Stilla is something that has been a constant since forever, and I will probably keep drawing her until she stops being gay.
Maverick is another very old story getting rebooted. Originally, he was part of a My Hero Academia fic that was just honestly copy-pasting the plot and then adding my own characters into it. I mean, can you blame me? It was middle school in quarantine. But now that story has gone through a purge and a cleaning, and all to make a massive roster of 52 characters down to 8, divided into heroes and villains. Though him and his fellow story members are still in the middle of a bit of redesigning, I can at least talk about some of them while he's on screen. Maverick is one of 4 main characters in a superhero story that is honestly just comfort food for me. Every choice I make in this story is just because I think it's fun or something that I wanted to do. And it's such a breath of fresh air because instead of the horrors of a brain-damaged child making the best of a situation and the consequences of standardizing an element in nature acting like you can control it, this is just my Fast and Furious family shit. Maverick, in particular, is the most responsible of his friend group, but purely in the monotonous life. You know, getting groceries on time, having those few solid recipes you're able to sift through, doing the dishes when they need to be done, washing laundry like clockwork, but superhero stuff. Not something he took to very easily. He was by far the last one of the hero cast to accept that he was a part of the plot, with new and cool powers, and he'll love it, goddammit. And that's why I love him so much. He just hates being here, and he can't help it. O61 is another, you guessed it, old as fuck character. He was born around the same time as Squid Games released. And I must say Squid Games didn't influence much. I just need you to keep that in mind for a second. O61 was really made on a whim. I was bored, and I wasn't interested in drawing for any of the stories I was working on. So I got a random word generator, 3 random words, and made a little guy with no name. I decided he was some kind of science experiment with no idea what he was really being experimented on. And who cares? It was just for fun. Though he needed something to be called. So why not a number? I mean, that's what science subjects have, right? Well, Squid Games is cool. I like that one lady. But what was her number again? Yeah, I remembered her number wrong, and then gave it to O61, and that has been his name for the past 5 years. His story has become more and more horror-focused the better I get at making uneasy atmospheres. And while the story has changed very little over the years, it's those visuals I keep tweaking and working with. Easily, this latest iteration has been my most favorite, with how different early game O61 looks to the rest of the horrors around him, and how everything shifts to find a middle ground as his mind gets a grip on itself. He does have a co-star as well. He was actually originally made by my best friend Jexter, who named him Seth. Since his creation at some point over the past 5 years, I adopted him, and he's been a second constant of this story. The two were joined at the hip until an accident happened, though Seth has been gone for a worrying amount of time after that. I wonder if the two will find each other again. Because there's 4 big stories trying to share the spotlight in Artfight, I want to do something a little special and share as much as I can about other characters in the stories while I attack people. I know how deranged that sounds, but I am going to host a poll on my Instagram story every Sunday with a theme. Here's going to be the schedule and time it will be posted in UTC. This first little event will be adding in the antagonist or villain of whatever story wins the vote. If a story has more than one villain, I'll just choose the one I can yap about the most. As it should say, it will be July 5th, 7 a.m. UTC for the first voting. This schedule will also be posted on its own, so it will be a bit easier to come back to. For the polls as well, stories will be referenced by their titles, which are on their Artfight accounts, but I will say it now too. Silver will be listed as Cells of Oblivion, Emmy as Chronicles of Magi, Maverick as Fracture Bias, and O61 as Mori. If you want to learn more about your favorite of the bunch, don't forget to check out my story on July 5th, 7 a.m. UTC. As always, thank you so much for indulging me, and have a good one.